a werewolf shifter romance written by Catherine Stewart. Prologue. The wind. It whispers secrets through the ancient boughs of Blackwood Forest. Secrets I, the Elder, have listened to for more seasons than there are stars in the velvet cloak of night. And then, sometimes, it doesn't just whisper. It sings a warning. A premonition. Lately, that song has been almost deafening, a thrumming in the very roots of the great trees, an agitation in the sacred pulse of the Blackwood heart itself. Because of that, my old bones ache with a knowing they haven't felt in many, many turns of the moon. Something is coming. Something vast. The scrolls, brittle with age and smelling of old parchment and forgotten sorrows, they speak of this time. They speak of the Aethel Bloem, the Elderflower Soul. A human, yet not merely human. A bridge, a catalyst. Her scent, the ancient texts claim, is a call to the Alpha line, a fragrance of pure, undiluted life that can either soothe the deepest wounds of our kind or ignite a consuming fire. For generations, the prophecy has been a shadowed legend, a story told to pups to teach them of fate's double edge, how the brightest hope can cast the darkest shadow. More importantly, the texts warn that her arrival signals a turning point. A time when the Blackwood Pack will either rise to an age of unprecedented harmony or face its most devastating ruin. Which will it be for Liam Alfa? Our strong, burdened Alpha, the current guardian of the heart. He carries the weight of our world on his young shoulders, and this prophecy, I fear, will be his heaviest load yet. To make things worse, the shadows that hunt us, those cold collectors who seek to dissect and control what they cannot understand, their presence has been growing stronger on the borders of our territory. Like jackals sensing a coming storm. They too, I suspect, feel the shift in the ancient energies. They too, perhaps, are looking for a key. Maybe it was fate that their activities have escalated now, just as the signs of the Aethel Bloem's awakening begin to stir the very air we breathe. No matter how hard she tried, or rather, no matter how hard we all try, the threads of destiny are already weaving a new, intricate pattern. The elderflower will bloom, and the wolf will answer. The only question that truly chills my ancient blood is this: will their meeting be the dawn we've prayed for, or the twilight of all we hold dear? And so, I watch. I listen to the wind, and I wait for the scent of elderflower to finally drift from the distant, sprawling city, signaling the true beginning of the storm. The city hummed, a restless giant thing. And I, Clara Ramsey, just tried to keep my little corner of it neat. My blueprints? They made sense. Lines straight, angles perfect. My apartment was the same, each cushion just so. Even the tiny elderflower bushes on my balcony seemed to stand to attention. Though, truth be told, they bloomed a little too bright, a little too wild for my tidy life. Because of that, I sometimes felt a weird itch, like a part of me wanted to mess it all up. Just a little. Leo, my best friend, a whirlwind of a journalist, always said I was too neat, too tucked in. Clara, darling, he'd tease over lukewarm coffee, his eyes dancing. Your world is a beautifully drawn blueprint. But life's meant to be lived off the page, you know? A little messy, a little wild. I'd just roll my eyes. But then, a quiet little voice inside would whisper he's not wrong. I did want more. Something that didn't fit neatly into my logical boxes. Was that so illogical? Still, when Leo actually called a few days later, buzzing about a blind date he'd, accidentally on purpose, helped arrange, my first instinct was to say a very logical, very firm no. And then Leo, bless his meddling heart, mentioned the guy was an ecological consultant, someone who spent his time in remote wilderness areas. An image flashed in my mind. Tall trees, dirt paths, something so different from my steel and glass world. Maybe it was fate, or maybe I was just tired of my own neat excuses. Because I heard myself saying, "Okay, Leo. Fine. One date." He cheered, like he'd won the lottery, which meant I was now officially committed to an evening with a complete stranger. A wilderness man. What had I gotten myself into? Before she could move, her phone buzzed with the details. Liam Alfa. The Oak Room, 8 p.m. Don't wear your interviewing a difficult contractor face. Have fun. Easy for him to say. That night, trying to pick an outfit, I felt a strange flutter. Not quite nerves, more like anticipation. It was a feeling I hadn't realized I'd missed. What followed was an internal debate over an old blue dress versus a newer, more sensible, gray one. Maybe it was fate that the blue dress won. The one that always made me feel a bit more me. A bit less like architect Clara. Because of that choice, I felt a sliver more adventurous than I had in years. The restaurant, the Oak Room, was just as Leo described it, all shadowy corners and the hushed murmur of other people's secrets. It smelled faintly of old wood, beeswax, and something else. A subtle, sweet floral note, almost like the elderflowers on my balcony. Deep down, she knew the truth. This was it. No turning back. Then I saw him. And my carefully rehearsed casual greeting caught in my throat. He was already seated in a secluded booth, more a presence than a person in the dim light. Still as a forest predator. Her heart skipped. As he rose to greet me, he unfolded. Tall, lean, with shoulders that spoke of quiet strength, and eyes. Her breath caught. His eyes seemed to absorb the flickering candlelight, holding it captive in their golden depths. They locked onto mine. And the bustling restaurant, the clinking glasses, the low hum of conversation, it all just faded away. As if the world narrowed to the space between us. Clara. His voice was low. A rumble that vibrated through the polished floorboards and straight up my spine. It wasn't just a question, it was an acknowledgement. Like he'd been expecting me, not just tonight, but for a long, long time. In that moment, I understood. This wasn't just another Friday night. No matter how hard she tried to be logical, this felt different. Bigger. Something inside her shifted, a recognition her bones remembered, even if her mind didn't. And then, as he gestured to the chair opposite him, a shadow of something unreadable flickered in those incredible eyes. And I found myself wondering, with a sudden, sharp pang of curiosity that overshadowed my nerves, what secrets lay hidden behind that guarded gaze. The first few minutes were a careful dance. Polite questions. Even more polite answers. He was reserved. That was the kindest word. So, an ecological consultant? I started, trying for breezy. You must travel to some interesting places. A beat later, his lips curved. But it wasn't quite a smile. Sometimes, he said, his voice still that low thrum. The wilderness has its own demands. Demands? His choice of words was peculiar. Not beauty or challenges, but demands. It painted a picture of something more than just a job. I noticed he barely touched his water, his hands resting on the table, still and powerful. With every heartbeat, the air between us seemed to thicken, charged with an unspoken current. He asked about my work, and as I talked about buildings and designs, I saw a flicker of genuine interest in his golden eyes. A keen intelligence that seemed to absorb every detail. But then, his gaze would drift, just for a second, to the window, to the shadows outside, his focus sharpening as if listening to something I couldn't hear. To make things worse, for my composure anyway, when the waiter brought bread, Liam subtly shifted the small silver butter knife further away from himself, his fingers brushing mine for the briefest instant. As fire bloomed beneath my skin from that fleeting contact, I almost missed the odd gesture. It was small, almost insignificant. Yet, it lodged in my mind. Another piece that didn't quite fit. He didn't talk much about himself, skillfully turning my questions back on me. But when he did speak of the forests he surveyed, his voice held a deep, almost reverent tone. Blackwood Forest, especially, he murmured, almost to himself, it's ancient. It remembers. She didn't know what scared her more, the intensity in his eyes when he spoke of that forest, or the undeniable, irrational pull I felt towards this man of secrets. By the time our main courses arrived, I knew two things for certain. Liam Alfa was unlike anyone I had ever met. And despite every logical alarm bell ringing in my head, I desperately wanted to see him again.
Her scent, elderflower. It clung to my senses, a melody my wolf had known for 1,000 years. A scent prophesied, a scent that meant hope and ruin, all tangled up in one pretty, human package named Clara. By the time our first date ended, my carefully ordered world, my Alpha's control, it was all just gone, blown away like ash on the wind. Because of that, I knew I should have stayed away. Far away. My duty, my vow, the safety of my entire pack, screamed at me to run, to never look back. But then, her face would swim into my mind. Those intelligent eyes, so full of a life I only dreamed of, the soft curve of her smile that made something in my chest ache. My wolf paced. Restless. Mate. Ours. Aethel Bloem. It wasn't a thought. It was a primal certainty that thrummed through my blood. Hot. Demanding. So, I called her. My human voice sounded steady, even casual, when I asked her to meet for a walk in the city park. Inside, a storm raged. What was I doing? Inviting the prophecy to dance. Inviting danger to taste her sweet scent? Maybe it was fate. Or maybe I was just a fool. A werewolf alpha who couldn't resist the call of his destined what? Salvation? Destruction? She agreed, her voice a little breathless, and my heart, the traitorous human part of it, leaped. The wolf just grunted, satisfied. For now, this was a dangerous game, playing with fire, with a future that could burn us all. And then, as we walked by the river, the late afternoon sun painting the city in gold, the game stopped being a game at all. The first sign of trouble was a flicker in the crowd, too deliberate, too watchful. Human, but wrong. Their scent was a sour note in the symphony of city smells, cold, sterile, with an undercurrent of something metallic and predatory. Collectors. Here. Now. How? My senses screamed. Clara was laughing, telling me about a ridiculous client, her face alight, so beautifully unaware. Her elderflower scent wrapped around me, a fragile shield against the sudden ice in my veins. Before she could move, I steered her towards an old stone archway, my hand on the small of her back. Quick, this way, I murmured, trying to keep the growl out of my voice. I just remembered, there's a view from here you have to see. A lie. A stupid, flimsy lie. Her body moved on instinct with mine, though her eyes questioned. What followed was a blur. Two of them. Closing in. Not pack wolves. These were the two-legged kind. The ones with cold eyes and colder weapons. I moved. There was no thought. Only the primal need to put myself between her and them. One lunged. I sidestepped, my movements too fast, too fluid for human. A shove, harder than I intended, sent him sprawling. The other one hesitated, his eyes widening as he saw something. Something not quite human in my speed, in the feral glint I couldn't hide. He backed off, then turned, and fled, his partner scrambling after him. With every heartbeat, the silence they left behind roared. Clara was staring at me, her hand covering her mouth, her eyes wide with shock, with fear? Or was it something else? Liam, what? How did you? Her voice trembled. I had no answer. No lie big enough. In that moment, under the weight of her stare, I knew the ordinary world I tried to show her had just crumbled to dust, and I had no idea what to build in its place. That night, sleep was a battlefield I lost. Over and over. Her face, etched with confusion and that dawning fear, haunted me. My wolf was a wreck, torn between the urge to go to her, to explain, to somehow make it right, and the instinct to retreat, to protect her by vanishing from her life. Which meant I had to see the elder. Come morning, the forest air, usually a balm, felt heavy with my turmoil. The elder listened, his ancient eyes, the color of moss and wisdom, fixed on mine as I recounted the incident in the park, the undeniable scent of the Aethel Bloem, the collector's sudden appearance. As the silence stretched after I finished, he merely nodded. The prophecy unfolds. Liam Alfa, he rumbled, his voice like the shifting of old stones. The Aethel Bloem is a mirror. She will reflect the path you choose for yourself and for the pack. Not exactly helpful, but is she a danger? I pressed, the words torn from me. Or our salvation? He tilted his head. She is destiny, Alpha. And destiny, more importantly, is a choice. Yours to make. The collectors know of her now, or soon will, because of their heightened interest in our territory. Their senses perhaps picking up the shift in the ancient energies her presence causes. They will see her as a key prize. You cannot simply walk away, nor can you fully shield her without revealing everything. Because of that, my heart sank. His words offered no comfort, only the stark reality of my impossible situation. To make things worse, he added, the Journal of Alphas, it was left with her? I flinched. An accident. There are no accidents when destiny stirs, Liam, he said, a hint of something unreadable in his tone. Perhaps it is where it needs to be. For now, what's worse was the unsettling feeling that the forest itself seemed to be watching me, waiting. Eventually, with no clear answers, only a heavier burden, I left the elder. The scent of the deep woods did little to clear the image of Clara's wide, questioning eyes from my mind. I knew I had to see her to understand what she now thought, what she might have learned. I found her at a small cafe near her apartment a few days later, pretending it was a chance encounter. My wolf practically howled in triumph just being near her again. Her elderflower scent, a desperate drink of water in a barren desert. She looked different. Wary, yes, but also a new, sharp intelligence in her eyes. A resolve I hadn't seen before. She was holding a book, but I suspected my journal was not far away. Liam, she said, her voice carefully neutral. My name on her lips, it still did things to my insides. Fancy meeting you here. I tried for casual, but my voice was rough. Clara, I needed to talk to you. About the other day. Her gaze didn't waver. I'm listening. And then, the words just came out. A torrent of half-truths and desperate evasions I hated even as I spoke them. I told her those men were from a rival consultancy, trying to intimidate me over a land survey. That I had some security training. Each lie felt like a stone on my chest. She listened patiently, her expression unreadable. When I finished, the air thickened. Security training, she repeated softly. That's what you call it. She knew. Deep down, she knew the truth. Or at least, she knew I was lying through my teeth. Before either could speak further, a shadow fell over our table. Not collectors, this time. Just Leo, her journalist friend. His eyes narrowed, taking in the scene with a reporter's sharp assessment. Clara? Everything okay here? His tone was light, but his stance was protective. Her world tilted slightly as I saw the bond between them. Because of that, a low growl rumbled in my chest, so quiet only my own ears could catch it. Jealousy? Or just the alpha instinct to isolate the Aethel Bloem? She didn't know what scared her more, the lie I'd just told, or the truth I was so desperately trying to hide. As Leo sat down, effectively ending our private conversation, I realized with a sickening lurch that trying to keep Clara safe and ignorant was not only failing, it was actively pulling her deeper into the very dangers I was sworn to protect her from.
Liam's evasions at the cafe, the way Leo had stepped in like a worried brother, it all just solidified the knot of unease in my stomach. That night, sleep was a distant country I couldn't reach. Instead, I found myself back at my desk, Liam's battered leather journal open before me, its pages whispering secrets in the quiet solitude of my apartment. The scent of old parchment and something wild, like damp earth and pine needles, seemed to rise from it, filling my meticulously ordered space with a feeling of untamed forests and ancient mysteries. With every heartbeat, I felt myself being pulled further into his world, a world that my logical architect's mind still struggled to accept. Yet my heart seemed to understand its language. The journal spoke of alphas, of a sacred Blackwood heart. Was it a place? A thing? An idea? And of the crushing weight of responsibility that came with leading a pack. It painted pictures of fierce loyalty, of bonds stronger than steel, but also of a constant, gnawing vigilance against an enemy it only ever called the collectors. Who were they? What did they want? The more I read, the more my blood ran cold, because the descriptions of their ruthlessness, their cold determination, made them sound less like business rivals and more like hunters. Sketches of wolves, proud and magnificent, filled the margins, sometimes so detailed I could almost feel the texture of their fur, see the intelligence in their eyes. And then there were the drawings of the elderflowers. My elderflowers, their delicate blooms rendered with an almost reverent touch, often appearing alongside strange symbols that looked like constellations I'd never seen in any astronomy book. An open loop, a question mark hanging in the air of my quiet life. Why this flower? Why me? She didn't know what scared her more, the terrifying world unfolding in those brittle pages, or the undeniable, deepening connection I felt to the man who owned them, the man whose soul seemed to bleed onto the parchment. My fingers traced a drawing of a lone wolf, its head tilted back in a silent howl beneath a shattered moon, and a pang of such profound empathy, such an unexpected understanding of his loneliness, shot through me. It was as if his pain was my own. And then I found it, a hastily scrawled entry, newer than the others, that mentioned a recurring symbol found near an old, forgotten chapel on the furthest outskirts of Blackwood Forest, a place whispered about in local legends as being touched by the old ways. And a cold dread, mixed with an irresistible curiosity, began to take root. What followed was a week of fractured focus. My architectural designs felt flat. The precise angles and calculated load bearings that usually brought me such satisfaction now seemed mundane, almost trivial, compared to the wild, untamed world hidden within Liam's journal and, I suspected, within Liam himself. Because of that, I found myself spending hours online, not researching building codes, but cross-referencing local folklore about Blackwood Forest with the cryptic entries in the journal. The old chapel kept appearing, a place of rumored strange lights and eerie silences, a place where people said the veil between worlds was thin. I even tried to subtly pump Leo for information, asking him if his journalist contacts had ever heard of unusual land claims or secretive activities around the Blackwood periphery. He gave me a sharp look. Clara, what exactly are you digging for? This Liam guy, he's got you spooked. And honestly, he spooks me too. He promised to ask around, but his concern was a heavy cloak I couldn't quite shrug off. Then Liam called. His voice, that low rumble that always sent shivers down my spine, sounded strained, tense. Clara, can we meet? There's something I need to tell you. Or, at least, try to. My heart hammered. This was it. Maybe. I agreed, suggesting a walk in the less frequented botanical gardens, a place where we could talk without the city's oppressive ears. As if pulled by a string, I found myself dressing with extra care, a silent admission of how much this meeting meant. He was waiting by the old iron gates, and the moment their eyes locked, I knew something had shifted. He looked tired, the skin stretched taut over his cheekbones, those golden eyes holding a new depth of shadow. As we walked, the scent of roses and damp earth around us, I tried to observe him, really observe him, through the lens of the journal's revelations. And then I noticed it, the way his head would tilt, his attention snagged by a sound far beyond my own hearing, the way his gaze would track a bird in flight with an unnerving, predatory focus, the subtle tensing of his shoulders when a group of laughing teenagers passed too close. These weren't the actions of a simple, ecological consultant. No matter how hard she tried to rationalize, the evidence was mounting. We sat on a secluded bench overlooking a lily pond, the silence stretching between us, thick and heavy. "Clara," he began, his voice rough. "Blackwood, it's not just a forest. There are things out there. Dangers. People who don't respect its boundaries, who take what isn't theirs." His eyes met mine, a clear warning in their depths. Some places, some secrets, they're best left undisturbed. For everyone's safety. Before I could press him, before the words forming on my lips could even take flight, his head snapped up. His whole body going rigid. His gaze fixed on something beyond the trees. And without another word, he was on his feet, muttering a curt, "Stay here. Don't move," before vanishing into the dense foliage with a speed that wasn't entirely human, leaving me with a racing pulse and the chilling echo of his warning. That night, sleep was impossible. Liam's cryptic warning, his sudden, animalistic alertness in the gardens, the chilling entries in his journal, it all swirled in my head. A terrifying, irresistible puzzle. Truth be told, a part of me, the sensible architect, screamed to walk away, to lock the journal in a drawer and delete Liam's number. But then, another part, a newer, wilder part that had been awakened by his intense gaze and the elderflower whispers from his ancestral record, urged me forward. Which meant, come morning, I found myself driving towards the outskirts of Blackwood Forest, towards the old, forgotten chapel mentioned in both local legend and Liam's own hurried script. I told myself it was just to satisfy my curiosity, to see the place, to prove to my logical mind that it was just an old, crumbling building. Yet, deep down, she knew the truth. I was looking for something more, a tangible link to Liam's impossible world. The air grew colder as I left the city behind, the trees pressing in, ancient and watchful. The chapel itself was little more than a ruin, stones green with moss, a collapsed roof letting in slivers of gray light. It felt old, incredibly old, as if the forest watched. I stepped inside, my boots crunching on fallen leaves and debris. The silence was profound, broken only by the drip of water and the skittering of some small creature. I ran my hand along a weathered stone wall, half expecting to feel something, a vibe, an energy. Instead, I found a small, metallic object half buried in the damp earth at the base of the wall. It was sleek, dark, and cool to the touch, no bigger than my thumb, with strange, almost unreadable symbols etched into its surface, symbols that were eerily similar to some of the more disturbing sketches in Liam's journal, the ones associated with the collectors. My blood ran cold. This wasn't folklore. This was real. Before she could move, a twig snapped behind me. My heart leaped into my throat. I spun around. It was Liam. But not the Liam from the cafe, or even the tense Liam from the gardens. This Liam was different. His eyes were pure gold, blazing with a feral light. His stance low, predatory. A growl rose in her throat, no, his throat, a sound that vibrated in my very bones. Primal. Terrifying. "Clara." His voice was a serrated edge. "What are you doing here?" "I told you, this place isn't safe." His fury was a palpable force, but beneath it, I saw something else. Fear. Not for himself, but for me. And just like that, everything changed again. Because as he took a step towards me, the lines of his body seeming to shift and ripple for an instant, I wasn't just scared of the forest or the strange object in my hand anymore. I was terrified, and yet utterly transfixed by the wild, impossible truth of the man standing before me.
The sight of Clara in that ruined chapel, holding that piece of collector tech, her eyes wide with a dawning, terrified understanding. It had ripped something loose inside me. My control, always a tightly coiled rope, felt frayed. That night, the forest whispered her name. Carried on the wind, the scent of her unique elderflowers, a phantom torment that clung to my senses. Because of that, I knew my previous attempts to subtly warn her off, to scare her just enough, had been a fool's errand. She wasn't just curious anymore. She was entangled. My wolf paced within me, a restless, agitated beast. She is Aethel Bloem. She is ours. Danger circles her. He was right, damn him. Dr. Hayes wasn't stupid. Her collectors were already sniffing around the periphery of my pack's territory, their interest in Blackwood Forest intensifying. Which meant Clara, with her intuitive draw to its secrets, was walking a razor's edge. I had to try something different, something more direct, yet still short of shattering her entire reality. Maybe it was fate that I saw her a few days later, walking near that little park by the river where we'd first encountered those collector scouts. My heart, that stupid human part of me, ached with a longing so fierce it almost buckled my knees. Her presence was a fire in my blood, a comfort and a torment, all at once. I approached her, trying to project calm, a feat that felt like holding back a hurricane with a picket fence. "Clara," I said, my voice rougher than I intended. "We need to talk. Somewhere private." She looked up, her eyes searching mine, full of questions I couldn't yet answer. As if pulled by a string, she agreed, though a new wariness clouded her usual open expression. We found a quiet bench, the city's roar a distant hum. "You were in Blackwood Forest?" I stated, not a question. "At the old chapel." Her chin lifted. "Yes." No fear, just a quiet challenge. My wolf purred, a low rumble of approval at her spirit, even as my human side despaired. "Clara, that place, it's not for casual visitors. There are people, dangerous people, who are interested in that forest for reasons you wouldn't understand. Reasons that could get you hurt. Badly." I tried to infuse my voice with a warning she couldn't ignore, to paint a picture of corporate espionage, illegal dumping, anything plausible that would make her stay away. Because she was a logical woman, right? She just watched me, her gaze unwavering. The kind of dangerous people who leave behind strange, metallic objects with unfamiliar symbols? She asked quietly, her voice trembling just a little. My blood ran cold. She knew more than I thought. Before I could move, before I could formulate another desperate lie, a sleek black car with tinted windows slid to a halt across the street. Its scent hit me like a physical blow, the same cold, sterile, predatory aroma of the collectors. And they were watching us, watching her. Without thinking, my body moved on instinct. My only thought to get Clara out of their sight, to shield her, even if it meant dragging her deeper into the shadows I inhabited. What followed was a desperate, hurried retreat. I grabbed her arm, maybe a little too roughly. "We need to leave. Now." My voice was a harsh whisper. All pretense of calm, gone. Her eyes widened, but to her credit, she didn't fight me, didn't scream. She just ran, her breath coming in ragged gasps beside mine as we ducked into a narrow alleyway. The scent of damp stone and old garbage a welcome cloak. The black car didn't follow immediately, but I knew, with a sickening certainty, they had marked her. They had seen her with me. As a result, she was no longer a potential curiosity. She was a target, a means to get to me, to my pack, to the heart of the forest. We found refuge in the shadowed doorway of a closed shop, the city's pulse a frantic counterpoint to the hammering in my own chest. "Liam, what is going on?" She panted, her hand pressed to her side, her face pale, but her eyes blazing with a fierce determination. "Who were those men? Why are they watching you? Watching us?" The questions tumbled out, each one a fresh stab of guilt. Because of that, I couldn't meet her gaze. How could I tell her? How could I explain a world of werewolves and ancient prophecies and soul-deep bonds to a woman whose life was built on logic and tangible proof? My wolf snarled within me, frustrated, demanding action. Tell her, claim her, protect what is ours. But the human part, the part that understood fear and societal rules, hesitated. She didn't know what scared her more, the truth I was withholding, or the danger I had so clearly brought to her doorstep. "They're complicated, Clara," I finally managed, the words feeling like ash in my mouth. "People I crossed in my line of work. It's nothing for you to worry about. Even as I said it, I knew it was the weakest lie I'd ever told. Her eyes narrowed. Nothing to worry about. Liam, they looked like they wanted to take you. And you moved like nothing I've ever seen. She was smart. Too smart. Her architect's mind wouldn't let go of the inconsistencies, the impossibilities. The truth unraveled a little more with every passing second. In that moment, a cold dread washed over me. I couldn't protect her with half-truths anymore. The collectors were closing in, and she was in the direct line of fire precisely because of me, because of what she was to me, even if she didn't know it yet. The prophecy of the Aethel Bloem, the one that spoke of salvation or ruin, it felt like it was tipping towards the latter, and my every instinct screamed to change its course. As the silence stretched, broken only by our ragged breathing and the distant wail of a city siren, I made a decision. A desperate, terrifying choice that would change everything. Because keeping her in the dark was no longer an option, it was a death sentence. That night, I lured her to the edge of Blackwood Forest. Not into its depths, not yet, but to a place where the city's harsh lights surrendered to the deep, velvet shadows of my world, where the air itself thrummed with ancient power. I told her I had to show her something she wouldn't believe, but needed to see to understand the danger. Her scent, that intoxicating elderflower song, was both a comfort and an agony as she walked beside me, her trust a fragile, precious thing I was about to shatter. My wolf was a storm beneath my skin, sensing what was coming, what I was about to unleash. And then, they came. As if summoned by my own dark premonition, Dr. Hayes's collectors emerged from the trees. Their movements precise, their scent an abomination in this sacred place. They weren't just scouts this time, they were a capture team. Their intent clear in the glint of silver nets, and the low hum of whatever foul technology they carried. Well, Alpha Liam. A chillingly calm female voice echoed. Dr. Hayes herself, stepping into a sliver of moonlight, her eyes like chips of ice. And you brought the anomaly. How convenient. Her gaze flickered to Clara, a predatory, assessing look that made my blood boil. Clara gasped, stepping back, her eyes wide with terror. Before she could move, before they could take another step towards her, I acted. There was no more hiding. No more half measures. With a roar that was more wolf than man, I let go. The change ripped through me, bones reshaping, senses exploding, the world sharpening into a kaleidoscope of scent and sound and raw, primal instinct. My clothes tore away as fur erupted, muscles bunched, fangs lengthened. The pain, a fleeting fire, eclipsed by the surge of an alpha's protective fury. I was no longer Liam, the consultant. I was Liam, the wolf, the guardian. And Clara, my Aethel Bloem, my mate, was behind me. When her name left his lips, or rather, the guttural sound that was her name in my wolf's mind, I launched myself at the collectors. What followed was a blur of fur and fury, snarls, and the sickening thud of impact. I was faster, stronger, driven by a desperate need to protect her. They fought back with their damned tech. A silver net grazed my flank, burning like acid, but I barely felt it. My focus was singular. Drive them back. Drive them away from her. Eventually, bleeding and snarling, I forced them into a retreat, their confident assault crumbling into a panicked scramble. As their scent faded into the woods, I turned, my massive wolf form trembling with adrenaline and the receding rage. And there was Clara, pressed against an ancient oak, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated terror. Yet her eyes, those incredible eyes, were fixed on me, not with revulsion, but with a dawning, horrified, almost wondrous understanding. As the silence roared between my wolf form and her human stillness, I slowly, painfully, let the change recede, the question of what came next, of what this catastrophic reveal meant for us, hanging heavier than the scent of blood and fear in the moonlit air. In the quiet that followed, the forest held its breath. I was human again, naked, bleeding, and more vulnerable than I'd ever been in my life, standing before Clara. Her initial terror had given way to a stunned silence, her face pale beneath the moonlight, her eyes huge as she stared at me, at the man who had just transformed into a monster, and then back again, before her very eyes. The scent of her fear was sharp, a painful counterpoint to the intoxicating elderflower that always clung to her. My chest ached. This was it. The moment the prophecy had always warned about. The moment the Aethel Bloem faced the truth of our world. Would it be salvation or ruin? Her voice, when it finally came, was a mere whisper, trembling like a leaf in the wind. Liam, what are you? The question hung between us. Raw, inescapable. I took a step towards her, then stopped, remembering the blood, the lingering scent of wolf. I'm what you saw, Clara. My own voice was hoarse, unfamiliar. I'm a werewolf, an alpha, the guardian of this forest. I watched her, bracing for the scream, the flight, the utter rejection my kind always faced from humans who learned our secret. Her thoughts spun. I could almost see them warring behind her eyes. Logic versus the impossible reality she'd just witnessed. She didn't run. Instead, her gaze dropped to the torn remnants of my clothes, then to the still seeping wound on my flank where the silver net had grazed me. You're hurt, she breathed, her voice gaining a sliver of strength. Before I could speak, before I could warn her away, her body moved on instinct. She took a hesitant step towards me, then another, her hand reaching out. My wolf, even in my human form, rumbled a possessive approval, a deep, primal satisfaction that this human, his mate, his Aethel Bloem, was not cowering. She touched my arm, her fingers surprisingly steady, her skin warm against mine despite the cool night air. As fire bloomed beneath her skin, or maybe mine, a jolt went through me, a connection that had nothing to do with the adrenaline of the fight, and everything to do with her. The journal, she whispered, her eyes lifting back to mine, filled now not with terror, but with a dawning, almost painful comprehension. It was all true. The pack, the collectors, the Aethel Bloem. Her gaze was searching, intense. Liam, why me? What does that mean for me? The words of the prophecy, the elders' cryptic warnings, my own deepest fears and hopes, they all swirled in my mind. I had to tell her. She deserved the truth, all of it, no matter how terrifying. And so, beneath the watchful eyes of the ancient trees, with the scent of her elder flowers of fragile promise in the night air, I began to speak, to unravel the tangled threads of destiny that had inexplicably, irrevocably bound my wild, secret world to hers.
The forest night, after Liam's impossible revelation, wasn't just dark anymore. It was alive, breathing with secrets I was now a part of. My whole world had tilted on its axis, the logical, architectural lines of my life blurring into something wild, ancient, and terrifyingly beautiful. Because of that, sleep felt like a distant memory. Liam, no longer just the enigmatic man from a blind date, but an alpha werewolf, my fated Aethel Bloem mate, and the guardian of this hidden world, had gently insisted I meet his pack elder. His hand, warm and strong, found mine as we walked deeper into Blackwood Forest than I'd ever dared venture, the scent of pine, damp earth, and his own unique musk, a scent that now made my soul answer, enveloping me. My heart hammered, a frantic drum against the ancient quiet of the woods. What would they think? This human, this Aethel Bloem. The name still felt foreign on my mental tongue. Liam squeezed my hand. The elder is wise, Clara. He understands the old ways, the prophecies. He'll help. His voice was low, a thread of reassurance in the echoing stillness. I wanted to believe him because the alternative was too frightening to consider. We arrived at a clearing, bathed in the soft glow of what looked like bioluminescent fungi clinging to the roots of an enormous, gnarled oak. An old wolf larger than any I could have imagined, with fur like spun moonlight and eyes that held the wisdom of centuries, sat observing us. Not a wolf, I corrected myself. The elder. As if summoned by our arrival, he rose slowly, his gaze piercing. Liam bowed his head slightly. Elder, this is Clara Ramsey. The Aethel Bloem. The elder's eyes, ancient and knowing, fixed on me. And I felt a shiver trace my spine, not of fear, but of recognition. Welcome, Wildflower Soul. His voice rumbled, not in words I heard with my ears, but as a deep thrumming in my chest, a thought planted directly in my mind. Your arrival has been anticipated. He gestured with his massive head towards a mossy stone. Sit. We have much to discuss, and little time. The celestial alignment approaches, and Dr. Hayes, she understands more of its power and your combined potential than we feared. As I sat, I felt a strange energy hum from the earth beneath me, a connection to the forest I'd never noticed before, and with a sudden intake of breath, the vibrant, almost painfully alive plants on my city balcony flashed in my mind. They'd always been this way, hadn't they? Responding to me. In the quiet that followed, the elder began to speak of ancient packs, of the delicate balance of the Blackwood heart, and of the specific, almost forgotten role the Aethel Bloem played in its protection. A role Dr. Hayes now sought to twist for her own terrifying ends. The elder's mind voice was a river of knowledge, washing over me, sometimes gentle, sometimes a torrent. He spoke of the Aethel Bloem lineage not as a curse, but as a sacred bridge between the pack's primal power and the earth's deeper magic, a lineage that could harmonize and amplify, or, if misaligned, could inadvertently sow chaos. Your essence, child, his thoughts echoed in my mind, the ancient eyes soft yet intense, is to nurture, to balance. Hayes seeks to weaponize that, to force a discordant symphony where there should be harmony. She will try to use you, and Liam, to shatter the heart's protections during the alignment, when it is most vulnerable, and claim its power. My logical mind reeled, trying to place these impossible concepts into some kind of framework, yet maybe it was fate, a deeper part of me, the part that made my elderflowers bloom so fiercely, understood. Liam sat beside me, his presence a warm, solid anchor. I could feel his tension, his fierce protectiveness. Marcus, Liam's lieutenant, who had silently joined us with a few other pack members, watched me with unconcealed skepticism, his arms crossed, his own wolfish scent sharp with doubt. The elder then guided me through a series of awareness exercises. Feel the forest, Aethel Bloem. Breathe with it. Its strength is yours, if you but listen. At first, I felt foolish, closing my eyes, trying to listen to trees. But then, a subtle shift. A tingling in my fingertips, a warmth spreading from the earth, the distinct, individual sense of pine, fern, and damp soil becoming a chorus. I reached out, and a wilting fern near my hand seemed to unfurl, its color deepening. My breath caught. Liam's hand found mine, his grip tight, his golden eyes wide with a mixture of awe and something else. Pride. Hope. The elder nodded slowly. Yes, it begins. But then, a piercing howl ripped through the clearing from a distant scout. Before anyone could speak, Marcus let out a low growl. Collectors. Near the southern ridge. They're at the old den site. That was where the pack kept some of its oldest lore stones, items not of power, but of history. Liam was on his feet in an instant. His transformation a blur of controlled fury. His alpha wolf emerging, magnificent and terrible. They know we're distracted, he snarled, his voice a deeper, more guttural version of the elder's mind speak, understood by all of us. He looked at me, a silent command in his eyes that I was not to follow. As Liam and the warriors disappeared into the trees like shadows, a wave of cold fear washed over me. Because I realized with sickening clarity that this wasn't just about ancient prophecies anymore, It was about a very real, very brutal fight for survival. And Dr. Hayes was already making her next move. The wait was agony. The forest, which moments before had felt like an extension of my own senses, now seemed to hold its breath, heavy with an unspoken dread. The elder remained still, a mountain of moonlit fur, his ancient eyes closed as if in communion with something far away. I wanted to pace, to scream, to do something. My hands clenched and unclenched. This passivity, this waiting while Liam and the others faced danger, it was a torment worse than any fear I'd felt before. What's worse was the gnawing thought that the collectors were at the Lorestone site because of me, because my presence, my awakening, had somehow made the pack vulnerable. Just as Marcus feared, the silence stretched, each second a lifetime. Then, a scent on the wind, faint at first, then stronger, blood. And, beneath it, Liam's unique musk, tainted with pain. My heart leaped into my throat. Before I could move, a battered Leo stumbled into the clearing, supported by two grim-faced pack members. He was pale, his clothes torn, a makeshift bandage around his arms stained crimson. "Clara," he gasped, his eyes finding mine, wide with a mixture of terror and relief. They were waiting. Not for Lorestones, for me. They knew I was helping you. Just like that, the stakes escalated. A cold, sharp knife twisting in my gut. Dr. Hayes hadn't just been testing their defenses, she'd been setting a trap. Using Leo to send a message, a brutal, personal message. As if summoned by that thought, a sleek, almost invisible drone, no bigger than my hand, whirred silently into the clearing, hovering before us. A synthesized voice, unmistakably Dr. Hayes's, echoed from it, cool and precise. "Aethel Bloem, Alpha Liam." A demonstration of reach. The journalist is insignificant. The celestial alignment, however, is not. The Blackwood heart will be mine. Your unique synergy will ensure it. Cooperate, and perhaps your precious pack will see another season. Resist. The drone tilted, a tiny red light blinking, and the forest will drink deep of shifter blood. Your choice. The drone then emitted a high-pitched, ear-splitting shriek that made even the elder flinch. Before it shot back into the darkness, the threat, the ultimatum, hung in the air. Suffocating. Absolute. My world tilted. This wasn't a game. This was a war. And Dr. Hayes had just drawn a line in blood, directly through my heart, by targeting Leo, by threatening Liam, and everything he held dear. The time for passive learning was over. In the echoing silence, under the weight of Hayes's chilling ultimatum, a new, cold resolve settled in my bones. I was the Aethel Bloem. And if Dr. Hayes wanted a war over the Blackwood heart and the man I loved, then by all the ancient magic in this forest, she would get one. Clara's resolve, that fierce light in her eyes after Hayes's ultimatum, it had stoked a desperate ember of hope in my own chest. We had a plan, fragile as it was, to protect the Blackwood heart, to use her Aethel Bloem essence in harmony with my alpha power. Because of that, we moved with a grim urgency, the pack warriors who remained loyal, a smaller number than I cared to admit, shadowing our steps as we approached the ancient protective wards around the heart's inner sanctum. The celestial alignment was hours away, the air already thrumming with a strange, expectant energy that made my fur prickle. We thought we were being clever, setting up our own defenses, laying our own traps based on the Elder's wisdom and Clara's intuitive understanding of the forest's flows. We were wrong. So terribly wrong. What followed was an ambush, but not one of brute force. Hayes was smarter than that. She used our own forest against us. Her collectors appearing like phantoms from nowhere, their movements too coordinated, their knowledge of our ancient pathways impossible. They herded us not with weapons, but with sonic emitters that scrambled our senses, with chemical agents that choked the air and burned our throats, targeting our heightened werewolf vulnerabilities. My warriors fell. Not dead, but incapacitated. Their howls of pain a fresh torment twisting in my gut. I fought a desperate, raging beast. Clara, a steadfast, terrified presence at my side, her attempts to use her calming Aethel Bloem aura fractured by the chaos and her own fear. Truth be told, my carefully laid plans, my alpha strategies, they crumbled like dry leaves. Hayes had anticipated everything. She had turned our sanctuary into a death trap. We were forced back, retreating through the very woods I was sworn to protect, the taste of ash and failure coating my tongue. The heart. I could feel its distress, a faint, painful pulse in the earth beneath my paws, a silent scream echoing Hayes's encroaching victory. To make things worse, a message, seared onto a tree by some collector device, mocked our retreat. The Aethel Bloem only accelerates the inevitable, Alpha. Your bond will be the heart's undoing. And mine. As we regrouped battered and shaken, deep in a hidden den far from the heart, the true horror of Hayes's strategy and the depth of her reach began to unravel with a sickening, cold dread. The den felt more like a tomb, the air thick with the scent of blood, fear, and the bitter taste of defeat. My pack, what was left of my fighting force, looked at me with hollow eyes. Clara, bless her brave heart, was tending to the injured, her hands gentle, her own face pale but set with a stubborn resolve that shamed my own wavering spirit. But then Marcus, his arm bound, his usual gruffness replaced by a raw, accusing anger, confronted me. "This is your doing, Alpha," he snarled, his voice a low, dangerous growl that silenced the den. "Bringing the human here, trusting in prophecies that speak of ruin as often as they do salvation. The elder warned of balance, and all she has brought is collector attention and this devastation." His words were like wolves' teeth, tearing at me, because deep down, a cold, terrified part of my soul echoed his accusation. Was Clara the ruin? Had my love, my fated bond, doomed us all? Before I could move, before I could find words to counter his pain, a scout stumbled in, his leg dragging, his scent reeking of fresh terror and something else, betrayal. "Alpha," he choked out, "the northern pass, it was unguarded. They knew. Someone showed them." A cold dread seeped into my bones. A traitor. In my pack. It was unthinkable. Yet, the evidence was undeniable. Hayes wasn't just outmaneuvering us. She was inside our defenses, inside our trust. And then, as if the forest itself wept, the captured elder was dragged into the den by two hulking collectors. Dr. Hayes herself stepping in behind them, a cruel, satisfied smile playing on her lips. Leo, Clara's friend, was with them too, bound and bruised, his eyes wide with terror. "A little reunion," Hayes purred, her voice dripping with venom. "Your elder has been most enlightening about the Aethel Bloem's full potential, especially when properly." She paused for effect, motivated. She gestured to Leo. "And this one. He led us right to your little hiding spot, all to save his friend." "Touching, isn't it?" Clara gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, her gaze fixed on Leo's broken form. My world tilted. Leo wouldn't betray Clara. Which meant Hayes was lying, twisting everything. But the damage was done. The pack's morale, already fragile, shattered. The seed of betrayal, once planted, was a poisonous vine. As Hayes's soldiers secured the den, her chilling laughter echoing around us, I looked at Clara, at the despair in her eyes, and a cold, dark certainty settled in my heart. All was lost. And it was all my fault. The celestial alignment was beginning. I could feel it in the thrumming of the earth, in the way the shadows deepened, in the oppressive, expectant silence of Blackwood Forest. Hayes had us. Me. Clara. The broken remnants of my pack, all herded like sheep towards the Blackwood heart, towards the very place I was sworn to protect with my life. Her collectors were everywhere. Their sterile scent a defilement of this sacred ground. The heart itself pulsed weakly, its ancient light dimming, as if mirroring the despair in my own soul. Hayes had me bound with silver-laced restraints that burned into my skin. My alpha strength sapped. my wolf a whimpering, caged thing within me. But the true agony was watching Clara. They had her on a raised dais near the heart, her wrists bound, her face a mask of pale terror, yet her eyes, her incredible eyes, still held a spark of defiance, a flicker of the Aethel Bloem spirit that had called to me from the moment I first scented her. Dr. Hayes stood before the heart, her expression ecstatic, almost orgasmic, as she prepared her ritual. Generations of your kind have hoarded this power, Alpha, she spat at me, her voice ringing with fanatical fervor. Guarding it, fearing it. But I will unleash it. With the Aethel Bloem as my catalyst, and your alpha blood as the conduit, I will rewrite the very laws of nature. She gestured towards Clara. She is the key, you see. Her unique harmony, once shattered and reforged by my will unlock everything. I strained against my bonds. A useless, pathetic gesture. My pack was broken. My mate was her prisoner. The heart was dying. The prophecy of ruin, it was here. It was now. And I, Liam Alfa, the great guardian, had brought it to pass. My love for Clara, my fated Aethel Bloem, had been the weapon Hayes used to destroy us all. The weight of that failure, that crushing, absolute guilt, was a darkness that threatened to consume me entirely. What's worse was the horrifying thought that maybe Marcus was right. Maybe some destinies were meant to be avoided, some bonds too dangerous to forge. I closed my eyes. A broken alpha, a failed mate. The forest seemed to sigh in resignation. In the crushing silence, as Dr. Hayes raised her hands to begin the final, terrible incantation, a single, impossibly delicate elderflower petal, perhaps carried on a sudden, unfelt breeze, drifted down from the canopy above and landed softly on Clara's bound hand, and for an instant, just an instant, the oppressive darkness in my soul flickered. Despair had been a cold, heavy shroud, threatening to suffocate the last embers of hope in my heart. Liam. My Liam, captured. Weakened. The proud alpha pawn in Dr. Hayes's monstrous game. The Blackwood heart groaned, its ancient light dimming, and the prophecy of ruin felt like a vice tightening around my soul. But then, as if fate itself whispered a defiant breath, that single elderflower petal had drifted down, landing like a soft kiss on my bound hand. And, in that instant, something shifted. It wasn't a roar of defiance. Not yet, but a tiny, stubborn spark deep within. A memory of the elder's voice resonating in my mind. Your essence, child, is to nurture, to balance. Hayes seeks to weaponize that, to force a discordant symphony where there should be harmony. Harmony, not force. My architect's mind, the part of me that understood flow and structure, suddenly saw it. Hayes wasn't creating synergy, she was creating chaos, twisting the Aethel Bloem's purpose. And then, a new thought, clear and sharp, I wouldn't let her. My love for Liam, a fierce, burning ache in my chest, flared into a desperate resolve. Before she could move, Marcus, Liam's lieutenant, who had been watching me with those hard, assessing wolf eyes, suddenly knelt beside me. He'd seen the petal, too, seen the subtle shift in the air around me, a faint shimmer of something. Maybe it was that, or maybe it was the sight of his alpha in chains. Aethel Bloem, he rumbled, his voice stripped of its earlier accusation, raw with a new, grudging respect. The old paths to the heart, the hidden ways. Hayes won't know them all. If there's a chance, any chance, he didn't finish. But he didn't need to. His eyes, no longer skeptical, now held a warrior's grim determination. He revealed a small, concealed blade and quickly cut my bonds, then his own, his movements economical and swift. Hope, fragile but fierce, unfurled in my chest like one of my own stubbornly blooming elderflowers. Because of that unexpected alliance, that shared spark of defiance, we began to whisper a plan, a desperate gamble woven from ancient forest lore. Marcus's warrior cunning, and the strange, intuitive magic that was now undeniably stirring within me. A plan to save not just Liam, but the soul of Blackwood itself. Moments later, we were shadows moving through a forest groaning under Hayes's assault. Marcus, a few of his most trusted warriors who'd escaped the initial rout, and, to my utter astonishment, Leo, who'd apparently been freed by a disillusioned collector grunt during the chaos at the den and had used his journalistic grit to track us here. His face grim but resolute. Our numbers were pitifully small against Hayes's organized forces, but there was a new fire in their eyes. A shared purpose. My role, as the Elder had hinted and as my own burgeoning Aethel Bloem senses now confirmed, wasn't to fight collectors head-on. Instead, it was to reach the hidden nodes of the Blackwood heart, the secret wellsprings of its energy, and try to soothe them. To reharmonize what Hayes was tearing apart. "She's using brute force to shatter its connections," I whispered to Marcus, my architect's mind overlaying a new kind of blueprint onto the forest's energy flows. But the heart isn't a machine to be broken, it's a living system. We need to reinforce its natural pathways, strengthen its core from within. It sounded insane, even to my own ears. Trusting this, feeling, this subtle hum beneath my skin, over tactical warfare. Yet, the pack warriors, their faith in Liam absolute, looked to Marcus. And Marcus, after a long, searching gaze at me, nodded. "The Aethel Bloem speaks with the forest's truth," he declared, his voice leaving no room for argument. "We protect her path. We buy her time." My final internal hurdle wasn't fear of Hayes, but fear of my own power. Of its unpredictability. Could I truly do this? Could I, Clara Ramsey, the city architect, command the ancient magic of this place? As if sensing my doubt, a warm pressure settled on my shoulder. "Leo, you got this, Clara," he murmured, his usual joking tone replaced with a quiet conviction. "You always were good at making impossible things work." His simple faith, the unwavering belief in Liam's eyes that I carried in my heart, it was enough. The air thickened with the scent of ozone and something wrong as we neared the heart's corrupted core. With every heartbeat, with every step deeper into the oppressed woods, the celestial alignment was nearing its peak. The distorted thrum of Hayes's ritual growing louder. A dissonant symphony we had to silence before it consumed everything. The journey to the heart's core was like walking through a nightmare. The forest, usually vibrant even in its deepest shadows, felt sick, corrupted. Twisted vines, pulsing with a faint, unhealthy light, choked ancient trees. The air was heavy, making each breath a struggle. Strange, shimmering barriers, no doubt Hayes's technological wards, flickered between the trees. But as I focused, as I let that Aethel Bloem intuition guide me, I could see the subtle gaps. The places where the forest's own energy pushed back, creating almost invisible pathways. "This way," I'd whisper, and Marcus and his warriors would follow without question, their movements like poetry, silent and deadly as they dispatched the few collector patrols we couldn't avoid. My senses were alive in a way I'd never known. I could feel the pain of the trees, the fear of the small creatures hiding in the undergrowth, the desperate, weakening pulse of the Blackwood heart itself calling to me. To Liam. And then, the sounds of the ritual began to reach us, Hayes's voice, amplified and distorted, chanting in a language that made my skin crawl, punctuated by Liam's roars of pain. Her name hung in the air, a venomous thing. My instincts searched. We were close. So close. Through a final screen of unnaturally silent trees, we saw it. The heart of the forest, a colossal, ancient tree whose roots delved into a glowing nexus of energy, was now surrounded by Hayes's infernal machinery. Liam was bound to its trunk, silver chains biting into his skin. His magnificent alpha form diminished. His head bowed, raw energy being forcibly drawn from him and the heart into Hayes's screaming devices. Dr. Hayes stood before them, arms raised, her face a mask of triumphant ecstasy as the celestial alignment reached its zenith, bathing the clearing in an eerie, unnatural light. The air crackled. Time stood still. This was it. The culmination of all her schemes, all our fears. As the forest held its breath and my own heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird, I knew there was no more planning, no more hesitation. It was time to act, to trust in the wild, ancient magic that was now, undeniably, a part of me.
Darkness, pain, the acrid scent of Hayes's corrupted magic, and my own blood. My wolf was a whisper, a dying ember, crushed beneath the weight of failure, beneath the burning agony of the silver restraints. And then, Clara, her scent, pure elderflower and unwavering courage, cut through the oppressive despair like the first dawn. I saw her, through a haze of pain, at the edge of the ritual circle, Marcus and a few loyal warriors a shadow at her back. Her eyes, those incredible eyes that held both the logic of her human world and the ancient magic of the Aethel Bloem, were fixed on the dying heart of the forest, then on me, and in them I saw not defeat, but a terrifying, beautiful resolve. Before the words left her lips, I felt it, a shift in the very air, a gentle countermelody to Hayes's discordant chanting. Clara wasn't fighting force with force. Instead, she was coaxing, weaving. Her hands moved subtly, her focus absolute, and the oppressive energy around the heart seemed to lessen just a fraction. Hayes, consumed by her incantations, didn't notice at first, but I did. My wolf, sensing the shift, the subtle infusion of pure Aethel Bloem harmony, stirred. A spark, a flicker, hope, as if pulled by a string, strength, raw and primal, surged through me, fueled by Clara's act. By her love, the silver burned, but the fire within me, the Alpha's fire, burned hotter. With a roar that was pure wolf, pure protective fury, I shattered the restraints. What followed was a desperate battle. Hayes, realizing her ritual was being undone from within, turned her rage on Clara. But Marcus and my warriors met her collectors, a tide of loyal fur and fury, buying Clara the precious seconds she needed. I lunged, not at Hayes, not yet, but towards the heart, towards Clara, placing myself between her and any immediate threat. The moment their eyes locked, our eyes, something incredible happened. Her harmonizing energy, the heart's purified power, and my alpha essence, they didn't just connect. They ignited. A wave of clean, vibrant power erupted from us, from the heart, washing over the clearing, scouring away Hayes's corruption. Hayes screamed, her form flickering as the balanced energies overwhelmed her twisted magic. Her power, built on force and control, shattered against the pure synergy of an alpha and his true Aethel Bloem. She was gone, vanished into the very chaotic energies she'd tried to command. In the sudden, ringing silence, the Blackwood heart pulsed, a steady, warm light bathing the clearing, and I turned to Clara. My mate, my savior, my Aethel Bloem, my everything. Moments later, I was kneeling before her, human again, my wounds already beginning to mend under the gentle thrum of the rejuvenated heart. Clara swayed, her face pale but luminous, and I caught her, holding her close, burying my face in her hair, the scent of elderflower and her own unique magic a heady balm to my battered soul. You did it, Clara, I whispered, my voice hoarse with emotion. You saved us. You saved everything. She leaned into me, her body trembling slightly. We did it, Liam. Her hand came up to cup my cheek, her touch sending shivers of pure, possessive joy through me. The space between them burned, but this time, it was with a clean, fierce love. The remaining pack members, led by a visibly awed Marcus, approached, their earlier doubts replaced with a reverence that humbled me. The elder, freed from Hayes's temporary restraints by Marcus, his ancient eyes glowing with a soft light, nodded slowly. The prophecy is fulfilled. His voice echoed in our minds, calm and profound. Not in ruin, but in harmony. The Aethel Bloem has brought balance, as was foretold for the Alpha who was wise enough to trust. Leo was also safe, witnessing the aftermath with awe. The immediate threat of the collectors, their leader vanquished, their twisted understanding of our power proven false, felt like a heavy cloak finally lifted from the shoulders of my pack. Blackwood Forest seemed to sigh around us, the air cleaner, the ancient trees standing taller, their leaves rustling a song of renewal. Truth be told, I had never imagined such peace was possible. As the first true rays of dawn pierced the canopy, painting the clearing in hues of rose and gold, I held Clara close, the promise of a new beginning, a new era for my pack and for us, unfolding with the morning light. Weeks blurred into months, then seasons. The Blackwood heart thrived, its pure energy radiating outwards, healing the forest, strengthening the pack. And Clara, my Clara, she blossomed. Her Aethel Bloem nature, fully awakened and embraced, wove itself into the fabric of our lives. She wasn't just my mate. She was a counselor, her logical mind and intuitive wisdom a perfect counterpoint to my alpha instincts. Even Marcus, now my steadfast right hand, sought her advice. Her architectural skills found new purpose too, as she helped design more harmonious living spaces for the pack, structures that blended seamlessly with the ancient rhythms of the forest. Our days were filled with shared duties, with quiet explorations of the woods she now loved as fiercely as I did, and nights. Nights were filled with a passion and an intimacy that still left me breathless, a deepening of a bond one knew was eternal. Her elderflower scent was the scent of my home, my heart, my future. We stood, often, by the rejuvenated heart of the forest, now a place of serene beauty and immense power, its light a warm, constant presence. The old parchment of the ancestral journals was now joined by new pages, chronicling not just struggles, but this era of unprecedented peace and prosperity, an era ushered in by love. Leo visited sometimes, his journalistic curiosity still alive, though he'd sworn to protect our secret. He was working on a book, he said, about mythical guardians and the unsung magic of the wild, his eyes twinkling. He knew a good story when he saw one. Maybe it was fate that brought Clara to me, that tangled our lives in prophecy and peril. But it was our choice, our love, our unwavering belief in each other, that had forged that destiny into something beautiful, something strong, something ours. And as I watched Clara, her laughter echoing through the sun-dappled clearing as she played with a pair of wolf pups, her own unique light outshining even the heart's ancient glow, I knew with every fiber of my being, with every beat of my alpha heart, that our story was just beginning. A legend whispered on the wind, an eternal promise of love found in the wildest of places. Epilogue. Years spun by, each season painting Blackwood Forest in new hues of vibrant life, a testament to the rejuvenated heart at its core. And then, within that thriving sanctuary, the Blackwood Pack flourished under the joint guidance of their alpha, Liam, and his Aethel Bloem mate, Clara. Their love story, once a desperate battle against dark prophecies and ruthless enemies, had settled into a legend whispered with reverence by the elders and sung with joy by the pups. Because of that, peace was not just an absence of conflict. It was a living, breathing entity, nurtured by their unique bond. Clara, no longer just the city architect who stumbled into a hidden world, now walked with the quiet confidence of one who understood the ancient rhythms of the earth and the fierce loyalty of the pack. Her architectural skills found beautiful expression in dens that harmonized with the forest, structures that felt as if they'd grown from the very soil, always with a small, wild patch of rare elderflowers blooming nearby. More importantly, her innate Aethel Bloem abilities continued to be a gentle, balancing force, her presence a comfort, her intuition a guiding light for her mate and their people. Liam, for his part, was an Alfa transformed. The haunted shadows in his golden eyes had long since been replaced by a warm, steady light, reflecting the deep contentment he found in Clara's love and the thriving of his pack. He still carried the strength of the guardian, but now it was tempered with a profound tenderness, a wisdom born not just of ancient lore, but of shared trials and a love that had conquered all. Their den, filled with the comforting scent of old parchment from new pack chronicles being written alongside Clara's ever-present elderflowers, often echoed with new sounds. What followed was the laughter of their children, two bright spirits, a boy with his father's fierce wolfish gaze, and a girl whose touch made wildflowers bloom out of season, both carrying the unique, powerful legacy of Alfa and Aethel Bloem. They were the living embodiment of the prophecy fulfilled, not in ruin, but in a glorious, harmonious union. Sometimes Leo would visit, his journalistic curiosity now softened by a deep, abiding friendship and the awe of the secrets he faithfully kept. He'd bring news from the distant, oblivious city and marvel at the magic that was now simply life for Clara and Liam. Truth be told, their world was one he'd only ever dreamed of writing about. And so, beneath the watchful eyes of the ancient trees and the ever-radiant Blackwood heart, the Alfa and his wildflower soul continued to weave their story, a timeless tale of love, destiny, and the enduring magic found in the wildest of places.